Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Otis, and I am the proud superintendent of ACS Calvert. I want to thank you in advance for watching this presentation and allowing me to share some of the things we've been up to as we prepare for opening the campus, possibly as early as February 1st in a blended learning model. But before I do that, I was looking at this picture behind me, and it reminded me of one of the wonderful traditions we have, International Day, sharing our heritage dress, and another favorite tradition, the parade of flags, and some traditional dancing going on behind me. And I'm thankful that ACS will be able to do that again in light of the vaccines that have either been approved in the UK or in China and are already being administered, or the ones that are imminently about to be approved in the US for distribution and use. I'm ecstatic that the pandemic is going to be coming to an end. Of course, the creation of the vaccines produces other questions about the distribution and the equity issues, and also when the vaccine will come to our region and our country and our city. But regardless of that, we know that there's an end in sight, and with that, a tremendous source of optimism for what lies ahead for ACS. The bulk of this presentation is dedicated specifically to explaining some of the biosecurity measures, the protocols, the policies and practices, as well as some of the educational design as we move in to the possibility of opening as early as February 1st in a hybrid model. I want to share a brief presentation with you that will help us gain collective understanding about what the school's been up to and how much we look forward to seeing you soon. But on behalf of the faculty and staff, I want you to know that we miss you tremendously. But as we end the first semester of an extraordinary year characterized by tremendous success of our students, support of our parents, and the wonderful work of our faculty and staff, there's also a darker side to be reminded of: the pain, the suffering, the difficulty, the unanticipated challenges associated with the uncertainty that we have all gone through together. With that, it's a stark reminder that we are all in this together. And it is through our collective support of each other and our students that we are going to come to the end of the pandemic and look back on this time and hopefully embrace each other in a new way. And I hope that over the past year, we've been able to support our kids, most importantly, with confidence, with calmness, and compassionately. Before we get into the specifics of the biosecurity measures that the school is going to take to protect our community, I want to congratulate Fernando Liendo, ACS alum and new board member, as well as Katie Buss, who were elected recently at our board elections. Combined with 7 members previously serving, our board is 9 people who work tirelessly on your behalf to make sure that we're always focused on the mission of the school. And I think now, more importantly than ever, the we of our mission characterizes the resilience of the ACS community and how we've been able to support each other in so many ways, seen and unseen, to get us through these unprecedented times. Another celebration is our accreditation. At my last General Assembly, I informed you that ACS had received the highest ratings in all 30 of Cognia's standards for educational excellence. And last week, after a review by the Cognia Global Commission, we received our certificate of accreditation for another 5 years. A tremendous sign that people from the outside know what a special place ACS is. And for us, we know just speaking with an ACS student for a couple minutes indicates that there's something special going on at the school, whether we are virtual or presencial. It is an extremely special place, and we're happy to celebrate our 5-year accreditation. This chart is a decision tree that was launched probably over a year ago as we considered the factors that were going to come into play as we moved into making decisions about when we would reopen. And right now, we've been moving through this blue rectangle up at the top, but we're also now looking into a blended learning model. But what are other schools up to? This was a survey done of schools in the Latin American region. The largest piece of the pie, red, indicates that schools are planning to transition to hybrid teaching or a blended learning model, 41% sometime in January and March. And I would guess that we are going to be in that pie. At the same time, the large green section indicates that it's dependent on the ministry, and a lot of schools in other countries and in Bolivia will not open without permission from the ministries. We are monitoring carefully the news out of the Bolivian Ministry of Health and the Bolivian Ministry of Education to make sure that we're going to be compliant should campus open. At the same time, should we receive permission, the board will also evaluate the safety measures and the readiness of the school to accept students on campus, especially in light of the current situation of the pandemic, which, if we were to open in February, could change substantially, better or worse. And that would have bearing on whether we felt it was safe to entertain your child on campus as a learner. Virtual learning will continue regardless. As we weigh the input of the Ministries of Health and Education, our ACS Reopening Task Force, led by Dr. Antonietta, myself, and members of the senior leadership team, are using the following guiding principles to determine our readiness. We know that we prefer face-to-face when it is safe, and we will always prioritize the health and safety and well-being of our community over all of these other principles. But we have been working hard to ensure that our health-related policies are research-based, and we are ready to promote practices that reduce the risk that the virus will come onto campus and that it will be transmitted. And if it is, that we will react in a responsible way. Let's get specific. Blended learning is when teachers teach on campus to students that are in front of them, presencial, and at home. As I mentioned earlier, the earliest we would be able to open campus to presencial instruction is February 1st. That is our anticipated date, keeping in mind that the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and the current situation and circumstances presented by the pandemic will determine that decision. I rolled out and we spoke about a very simple way to look at what we've been up to. Stopping the virus and as many infections from coming onto campus when we do open, protecting people when they are on campus, which means minimizing contact and the likelihood that the virus would be transmitted should it enter campus, and then being in a position to react responsibly when an infection or possible infection is identified. The stop, protect, react model can also be further expanded and understood by a metaphor of Swiss cheese. We know that no single defense is able to stop the pandemic. It's a combination of behaviors, practices, and concrete things that individuals and communities can do that will keep our community to the greatest extent safe and secure from the virus. If you can imagine Swiss cheese filled with holes, some of those holes are large. But if you were to layer different pieces of Swiss cheese together, in other words, compress all four of these, you might have a really strong chance of protecting a community against the virus. And indeed, there are schools around the world that are open, fully presential. They are practicing the same protocols I'm about to describe. And with tremendous success, they're able to protect their kids. So let's dive a little deeper into stop, prevent, and react. Stopping is the first layer of the Swiss cheese model, otherwise known as fences. Prevention includes creating social bubbles, small groups of kids that travel together throughout the school day. And reacting includes our ability to test, contact trace, and isolate people or small social bubbles when there is an outbreak or an infection is identified. We'll go one by one. Stopping the virus from getting to campus. After the December break, we have mandated a 2-week quarantine for any faculty or staff traveling who would enter the country back ready to teach on January 12th and maintain a quarantine so that we could monitor them and that would not be a risk moving into a February 1st possible start date. We are also going to require mandatory testing and offer that to the staff, all staff, 3 days prior. And should a staff member present with the virus, we would keep them at home and they would continue to teach virtually after they recovered if they were symptomatic and were suffering severely from the disease, and then test them before they got back to campus. We're prepared to limit campus access as we have in the past. No parents will be allowed on campus. No material will be dropped off during the day. This includes lunch. And no snacks will be available for purchase. Only lunch. Also at the gate, we will have 3 entrance check stations. One will check every person's temperature when they enter. There is a shoe tray filled with a disinfectant and multiple hand washing stations that we will ask people to use and enforce those expectations. That is how we prepare to stop the virus, the first layer of defense. The other 2 layers are the most robust, and that is preventing transmission when the virus enters. And I say when because more often than not, more likely than not, we should expect that virus to be on campus. What is the school doing to protect the community when they are on campus? A new health unit is under construction. No longer will Dr. Antonietta be in the administration building. We've taken over the first classroom on the left as you walk in through the elementary entrance. That has room for 5 beds. Yeah, it will have 2 entrance and exits and a separate bathroom. I'll show you plans for that in the next slide. We will have modified the security kiosk by increasing the space that Juan and Yuri and Ronaldo work in with improved visibility. We've also purchased 24 no-touch hand washing stations combined with our bathrooms. That gives us over 40 different places to wash hands. We've also we'll also be installing no-touch hand sanitizing dispensers in every classroom so that students can regularly sanitize when they go in and leave a classroom. This is the blueprint of our new health unit. You can see that should a person become symptomatic while they are on campus, we have the ability to isolate them in a ward bound by glass walls with a door that seals and a separate entrance where parents could pick up a student, for example, or if someone were identified with a high temperature or a fever upon entry, we would not let them in, but should they present once they are on campus with symptoms, we would be able to isolate them. And then we have the other more traditional features of a robust health unit, along with a separate bathroom. We've made modifications in our classrooms and our hallways. We're installing plexiglass shields on all the desks, students, teachers, and staff, in the library and on lunch tables outside. The cafeteria will be closed, so all eating will be outside unless the weather doesn't permit it, in which case it will be in classrooms. We've taken out carpets and throw rugs and soft toys from all of the classrooms because we know the virus can live on there longer than it can on hard surfaces. We've done ventilation checks, our ability to open windows and doors and make sure that air is flowing freely because we know that reduces transmission. And we will be frequently wiping down all surfaces that kids and adults come into contact. This is what the classrooms will look like. You'll notice spacing of the desks, no more than 12 to 13, depending on the size of the room, will be permitted to enter. And all people will be protected behind plexiglass shields and wearing masks. Another layout where the teacher desk is in the front of the room and the learners are around the side, distanced by at least, distanced by at least 1 meter. At the lunch tables, there will be spacing for 4 people, also protected behind shields. At the larger tables, there will be space for 6 to eat. I'll talk a little bit more about lunch later on in the presentation. With regard to personal protective equipment, everyone all the time will be required to wear masks properly, that is, fully covering the nose and mouth. Additionally, faculty and staff will be required to wear plastic face shields when they are in the presence of other people, for example, when they're teaching. Finally, the last piece of protective gear that teachers will have is lab coats. These are protective coats. Each teacher will get 2 of these, brightly colored in their color of their choice. And we anticipate that this will help them keep the virus from entering their home once they leave campus, should they pick up the virus from someone on campus. We've bought hundreds of signs that will be placed around the school in strategic areas to remind our young learners and ourselves of what it means to be responsible on campus. reminders of where to stand, where to walk, and how to wash hands correctly. We are employing a de-densification strategy and cleaning strategy, again, according to international best practices around safety in schools. That means regular inspections and deep cleaning. We will not be using any lockers, so students will be carrying their backpacks, their book bags around with them, or stashing them in their rooms near their chairs, for example, in elementary school, because no cubbies and no hooks will be used. Those are areas where people gather quite a lot, and we do not want to create incentives for people to gather unnecessarily. So everyone will be responsible for their individual materials. We'll be using physical distancing procedures up and down stairs, spacing desks in classrooms, eating lunch, etc. We will increase our supervision of student movement, making sure, for example, that if a stairway is one way down, students are only walking down in that stairway, or one way up, or in a hallway. Luckily, almost all of our hallways are outside, but we will have areas, sides of the hallway, exterior hallways, where you can walk in one direction, and on another side, another direction the other way. That will ensure that we are maintaining our distance. We also have a strategy to de-densify groups of students. I'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to divide the students, and also what lunch is going to look like. We are in the process of looking at our entire student list and separating them into two groups, two cohorts, 50% in cohort A and 50% in cohort B. Within each cohort, we will have social bubbles. So let me take Miss Julie's 5th grade class. Miss Julie's 5th grade class might be represented by this bubble, half of it. Half of Miss Julie's class is going to identify with cohort A. The other half will be cohort B. And in that way, we have split Miss Julie's class, so only half of her class will be in her room at one time. And we are doing that for all of the sections, for all of the grades. And as we move into the schedule, it will look something like this. Again, this is a model that comes from many international schools around the world, where they've divided their student body into two groups, and each group comes to school in alternating weeks. The value of this design is, should someone come down with the virus, they are fully off campus and anyone they came in touch with for an entire week before they come back on campus. This design seems to be one that's working really well around the world, and we will look forward to employing it. How have we assigned students into the different cohorts? The first thing we're looking at is keeping siblings together. This is for the convenience of our families. We don't want a brother and a sister to be in alternating cohorts. At the same time, we need to balance the size of the bubbles, make sure that Miss Julie's class is just about half and half, and also make sure that those halves are, to the greatest extent possible, balanced by boys and girls. Otherwise, the assigning of cohorts is random. De-densification around lunchtime and snacks is different. Again, we want students to eat and eat healthfully. They may bring their own lunch and they'll have to carry it in their backpacks. There will be no refrigeration or microwave because, again, those are areas that would create incentives for gathering. Because there's no lunch drop-off, I imagine many families will start to make their own lunch and have the students bring them. However, you may still order a cold lunch from Ceci, from La Huerta. And that would look like a survey where she would produce a menu and you would let her know on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you would like the cold meal, which the student would pick up from a table following safety and distance protocols, and then sit down in an assigned area. So we will have assigned areas where the social bubbles will stay together. Regarding snacks, we're not going to sell snacks during breaks. However, our KG3s and our youngest learners will still have snacks available. And snacks can be brought to school, but again, students must carry those snacks in their backpacks. Let's talk, so we spoke about how we're going to stop the virus from entering campus, and should it enter, how we will stop its transmission. I want to speak about what we're prepared to do should someone present with symptoms while on campus. First of all, lots of practice with what to do if something happens. And there are hundreds of scenarios. And the best way to prepare for them is to drill. Similar to the virtual learning drills that we had during the political disruptions of last October, when we practiced with faculty, what would it look like to not come to campus? That training has already started. Additionally, we will have the ability to shut down bubbles should one person or one student present with symptoms or be tested positive with COVID. We would shut that bubble down, and that whole bubble would switch to virtual learning, regardless of what the weekly cohort schedule was. We have the ability to contact trace. Through interviews, we'll understand who was near who, and we will reach out directly to those people and warn them to advise them to be aware of their signs and symptoms. And then also the ability to test students and staff that have suspected cases. So that is our reaction model. This presentation was mainly focused on explaining the biosecurity measures that ACS has in place and is planning to employ should we reopen in a hybrid or blended learning design. It also spoke a little bit about the design itself and how we are prepared to offer continuous education regardless of whether you choose to stay home or come to school. And that's an important point. Families will always have the choice of whether they want to send their child to school or not. If they choose to send their child to school during the assigned week for that cohort, they are welcome to, knowing that we will employ these measures and to the greatest extent possible keep their child safe. If they have permission to go to campus because their cohort is scheduled for that week, they may, for whatever reason, choose not to send their child, and that's okay. That child would remain at home and learn virtually. So it is completely up to the parents to decide. While this presentation was really meant to explain the majority of the work and the aspects of our biosecurity and safety measures, you may have additional questions or the need to discuss this. And so we invite you in smaller groups to elementary and secondary parent coffees, scheduled for Tuesday, December 15th at 8:30 if you're an elementary school parent, or Thursday, December 17th, same time, if you're a secondary parent. As we prepare for February 1st and the possibility that we would open, we will be administering some surveys to help us plan. This first survey that you'll receive on December 17th will give us an idea of whether you plan, in light of the information that I've just shared and what you've come to know about what ACS is doing, whether you plan to send your child to campus for presencial instruction during their cohort week. It is non-binding. We are not going to hold you to that decision because we know that decision could change tomorrow. It could change in January or as the landscape of the pandemic changes. We just want to get an idea of the appetite of our community to send their children to school right now. I will tell you that some campuses in Latin America and around the world have a 90% attendance rate. Others have a 10% attendance rate. It's dependent on the culture of the school, the context of the community, the conditions of the pandemic, and the confidence that parents have in the school itself. This presentation was a beginning. In January, we will be rolling out a series of training videos for you and your children so that they know exactly what to expect and what is expected of them as we prepare for blended learning. We will continue to train our staff. We also are crafting a modified extracurricular activity offer, always focused on following proper safety protocols. And we've also drafted a list of community commitments. These are commitments that we want to put in front of our community. We know that people are gathering in ways that will increase transmission. And we want to raise awareness of the importance of helping each other and ourselves be responsible as we begin to bring children back onto campus. Again, in January, we will roll that out, and we hope that you would sign that list of commitments to help us be safe. It's our responsibility to support you in the best of times and the worst of times. And as we navigate the loss and the optimism that the vaccine presents, let's stay connected. We need each other. Let's together stop the virus from coming onto campus and in our homes. Let's prevent the likelihood of transition and be in a position to react responsibly. Finally, this is the campus we know and love, filled with students learning side by side. We'll get there again, and I'm looking forward to that day. Until then, you can count on us to continually provide the best education in the region, whether virtually or blended, or 100% presencial, where I'm confident ACS will be as quickly as possible. Merry Christmas, everyone. I look forward to seeing you at the parent coffees next week on Tuesday and Thursday at 8:30. Please come with questions. It will be an open forum for discussion that Grace and Maria and I look forward to hosting. And again, be safe these holidays and take care of each other. Thank you.